Right, good morning, welcome back. Now if you've been following this project, you'll know already that the last couple of weeks has been a bit of a drama, to say the least. What started out as a simple coolant change turned into a proper ordeal. Taking off one of the water pipes proved that one of the tiny little elbows on the front of the pump had perforated due to a rust after 33 years. No problem, take the front of the pump off and get a new front plate. Can't get a new front plate, just take the pump off. Can't take the pump off. 3 snap studs, one of them all the way down into the engine. 4 hours to get that water pump off. And here we are today. The new pump has arrived all the way from Japan and it's absolutely identical to the one I took off, except the leaky hole, obviously. Now all I've got to do today is fit the pump, fit all the hoses to it, refill with coolant, refit the oil filter, put the new oil back in, fit 6 new spark plugs, and having that, I've already done the cam belts, that draws a line under the service for good, and finally I can get back on with the project. Right, now before just bolting the new pump on, I want to give the threads that hold it a little bit of love, and they're all dirty and skanky in there from red flakes of rust from the bolts that came out. They're okay, there's nothing damaged in there, just dirt. So I use an old thread cutting tap for that, an old blunt thread cutting tap. If you use a sharp cutting tap, then as you go down you can potentially cut some of the metal away and make the thread itself a little bit baggy. It's better to use an old blunt tap. That way as it goes in, it's too blunt to cut any of the metal, but it will clean out all of the cack and make it nice and fresh for your new bolts. Right, so penetrating oil first just to wash it out. It's a blind hole, so go right to the bottom. Look at all that cack. You don't need that. Get your tap down there. There it is, the thread's quite deep down. And just use your fingers so you're not cutting any harder than finger tight. And when you've reached the bottom, you have one clean thread. And this was the one that was jammed. Get a good clean out first. And in with the tap. There, no swarf, just dirt. There, now if you're ever fitting a new unit on your motorcycle and you doubt the relevance of cleaning out and chasing the threads, have a little look at that. All that is what came out of there. Why would you possibly bolt the new bolts on top of that without cleaning it on first? Now, obviously, I had to buy new bolts for this, and they're the correct ones. They came from a Honda dealer in a Honda bag, and they've got a diameter on the shaft part that's narrower than the thread. So I believe the threads are pressed in or they're rolled. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but basically they are specialised bolts and they're going to need a little bit of love. They're going to need a little bit of anti-seize compound along the shaft to prevent this exact problem happening in the future. When we take one of the bolts and we put it through its hole, you can see that that's the bolt fitted. And as you can see, there's some side float there, quite a bit of movement. The hole it sits down is a full millimetre bigger than the shaft of the bolt itself. So it's that gap that filled up with corrosion and caused me to have to cut it off. And I want to fill that gap now with anti-seize compound, as loads of you have suggested, so that it doesn't happen for some poor soul in the future. And I've got the best product I can think of for that right here. Now this is worth AL 1100. It's an aluminium focused anti-seize compound rather than just regular copper grease. And what I like about it also, it's in a spray can, so I can squirt it into all the little places where I want to get it. Boom. Right, just going to use this red rubber lube, put it on the seal, and I always put it on the seal itself on the male side of the two parts. That way, when you push it into the engine, any excess gets straight back out the way. If you put it in the hole first, when you push that rubber seal in, it's going to push any excess lubricant off and into your engine. So you end up with this stuff floating around in your oil, which is not ideal. Right, now one more little job to do before we can just pop it in is have a look inside the engine and you'll see a blade. It looks like the end of a big screwdriver poking at you this way. Now that's the drive blade on the end of the oil pump, and that blade fits into that slot and it drives the water pump. And effectively you just have to line up that slot with that blade before you put it in so that it slots in nice and snugly and locates. About there. Right, that's it. Water pump fitted. Now I'm just going to throw the fresh coolant in, fit the oil filter, fill it up with oil and chuck some plugs in it. Then we're done. Bang on. Boom. Always check your brand new spark plugs that they conform to the correct gap, because they don't get sent out from the factory perfectly gapped for your bike. These plugs fit multiple different bikes, so they're roughly right, but just make sure they're absolutely right. And you can either use one of these or a wire gauge, whatever works for you, but check them before you install them. Now, in case you ever wondered, spark plugs don't need lubricant or anti-seize when you put them in. You just put them in dry and they'll be fine, because according to one of the manufacturers, I think NGK, might be Champion, I don't know, they put a special plating on the outside of the thread that prevents them from seizing in place. So there's no need. You can install spark plugs dry. Right there, now what a royal drama that turned out to be. That started out as a coolant change, which should have been drain it out, fill it up, move on, but there we go. 3 videos later on, we've got a new coolant pump, new coolant, oil and filter change, 6 new spark plugs and new cam belts, and I'm really happy that that is the service completely done. But it's lacking one thing. I haven't run it up yet and check everything beds in nicely, and obviously set the coolant level right, because it took 3 litres of coolant, but it's got 1 litre to go yet. There's air in that system, so I've got to run it up to burp all that out. And of course, check the oil level correctly and make sure the cam belts are all installed correctly, that everything runs sweet and smooth. And I can't run it up without the header pipes on. And before I put them back on, I want to do a couple of little repairs on them and refurbish them before they're reinstalled. So join us for the next one and we'll do that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.